In this video tutorial, we're going to take a look at how to implement tree maps and sunburst diagrams in Excel 2016. And for a bit of comparison, we're also going to take a look at how we can also implement some of these features in Power BI, which is another Microsoft tool which you can actually download for free and start using. So aside from a nice pretty visualization, what exactly do you get from a tree map or a sunburst diagram? Well, if we take a look at the sunburst diagram, effectively what we have here is, well, an enhanced version of a pie chart, or well, a donut chart since it doesn't have the bit in the middle. But what are pie charts good for? Well, pie charts are good for showing the relative proportions of things. So we can very quickly see in this example that these are counties here, that the county Lewis and Clark makes up around 50% of the population. But where pie charts fall short is that they don't allow you to drill down to extra layers of details. So for example here, we can, if we wanted to see how Lewis and Clark breaks down into all the different departments, we can very quickly see that here, all within a single visualization. Now, the difference between these two types of visualizations here is that the tree map is basically a flattened out version of the sunburst diagram. Now, if we take a look over here, the sunburst diagram, we can see that it comes down to, we can see departments of corrections here. If we come over to the tree map on the left here, we can see, well, department of corrections is over here. But we can continue to drill down further and see some of these other details as well, which tend to get a little bit lost in the sunburst diagram. Because not as much white space is used in the tree map, you actually see a little bit more details and data available. Otherwise, they're effectively the same visualization in just slightly different formats. So how do you go about creating these visualizations in Excel 2016? Well, first of all, we can see here that we have a couple of groupings. We have a grouping, in this case, by county, and the second grouping by department. Now, typically in Excel, you would want to do a grouping using something like a pivot table. However, that does not currently work yet. So I'm sure this is a logical feature that Microsoft is working away on in their lab for future releases. So copying and pasting your pivot tables technically will work to create these type of charts, except it's really not a very good idea because as soon as you do any type of copying and pasting, you've created a manual step that you'll need to run every time you refresh your data. So there is a better solution for solving this though. Now, there's other ways of aggregating data besides pivot tables, and the way that I'm going to show you is by using Power Query, or well, Get and Transform as it's been renamed in Excel 2016. So I'm over here in a new workbook, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to load in our data set. So I'm going to come over here to Data, Get and Transform, from File, from Text, and I'm going to load up this file, which you've probably seen me use quite a bit in some of my other video tutorials as well. You'll see here that the data set has quite a few different columns. So we'll need to do an aggregation on county and department. To do that, I can come over to here and click on Edit. And under Transform, there is an option called Group By. So under the basic setting of Group By, I've got one Group By field. If I click on Advanced, it allows me to add additional groupings. So for the first grouping here, I'm going to select County, and for the second, I'm going to select Department. Over here, we have the metric that's going to be aggregated. Right now, this is a count of the rows. However, I could change this to, say, a sum or an average or any one of these other aggregation methods. So right now, this is doing the sum of the base. I could say do the sum of the annual total pay, for example, and click OK. And now you can see that all of our data has been aggregated right here in Power Query, which can be then loaded up into our Excel workbook. Note that this is also a really useful feature if the dataset that you're working with is basically too big to load into Excel. You can pre-aggregate it and make it smaller to make it easier to work with. But now we have the data in the exact format that we need to create a tree map or a sunburst diagram. We can come over to the Insert tab, and over here I've got our tree map. So I can simply click on this like so. And bring that over here, make this a little bit bigger. And you can do exactly the same thing with the sunburst diagram as well, which is basically just a round tree map. Now I also wanted to compare and contrast how you would implement the same thing in Power BI. A very big part of what I teach is picking the right tool for the job. So it's useful to be able to see how we can achieve the same results in different types of tools. So over here in Power BI, I also have a very familiar Get and Transform button over here. So, well, get data. We've got, I can select a CSV file. I'm going to select the same file. And one of the differences that you'll notice here is that instead of having to pre-aggregate the data like I did for Excel, I can basically just load the whole data set in. Over here, I can click on Tree Map, and I can simply click on the groupings that I want to apply. So I want to apply county and department, and I want this the sum of total pay. I just made 3 clicks, and I've created the same diagram. Now, the benefit of this, besides not having to pre-aggregate the data to work with it, is that it makes it very easy to change the groupings and stuff as well, and switch out the metrics. So right now I have annual total pay as this metric, which everything is aggregated by. And we can see this in this tooltip. So the tooltip you can see is actually a field down here which I can add additional information to. So for instance, I could take the head count and I could also add that to the tooltips. And now when I mouse over, I've got that head count metric also being displayed here. So a very useful feature. Now, Power BI is basically a data visualization tool. Very, very similar to other tools such as Tableau, ClickSense, Oracle Data Visualization. Amazon has AWS QuickSight. Now, a lot of these tools will do a really great job at this. Tools such as Power BI and ClickSense you can actually download and start using for free to get going. And the way that they make money off these is by charging for things like servers where you can host and serve up these visualizations to more people. Other tools such as R and Python allow you to create these types of visualizations as well through free libraries such as Plotly. The nice thing about those visualizations is that their output in HTML format, which you can basically put up on a website, so you don't actually have to pay anything for you don't have to pay for any special hosting requirements because it'll just work on the web. So hopefully this has given you a really good overview of how to use sunbursts and tree maps in a whole bunch of different tools and what they're kind of useful for. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.